Well, it's been a good long time since I've been over here at Ben and Amanda's. They've moved in. They've been using it. You'll see that the kids have put a little garage band studio room right over there with their instruments, and they're having a lot of fun, and Ben has been moving into his office. I've been taking care of the underground at home, but today I'm coming over here to hang some doors, run a little case and base, and get ready for Phil Rokas to finish up the bathroom. We're gonna get a final inspection, I don't know, maybe in 2 weeks, and lay this whole project to rest. If you ever need to adjust a door inside an opening and you can't, shave the door down or shim the jambs around to change the way it is located in the opening, sometimes you can do it by shimming the hinges using number 12 ground wire. Out of number 12 Romex, you cut a piece of the clean ground wire, put a past 90 degree bend about 1/4 of an inch long, and I'll show you how I can shim this hinge to bring the top of the door closer to the hinge. Had 1 long screw and 3 standard door screws. It's a good idea to shim the weight of the door up before you pull the hinge out of the mortise. Just support it a little bit. I want to put this wire in as a spacer on the back side of the hinge. If I put it on the front, it'll push the door away from the hinge. If I put it on the back, it'll twist that hinge, which will pull the barrel toward the jamb, which is what we want. Do it like this. Take your little piece of number 12 with a 90 plus, maybe 100 degree angle bent on there. You drill a hole just a little bit smaller than the wire. You start your little 1/4 inch 90 bend into that hole, tap it in, and then put your hinge back in place. Put the short ones in just to make sure everything is centered up. So what has happened now is the screw is sticking out of the mortise on the back and it's flush with the mortise in the front. So I don't know if you can see this, but it has closed our reveal at the top because this hinge has been pushed over. It's now just about touching that case, and it has made this top reveal better. It's widened that on the left, narrowed that on the top, and we are relatively even all the way down without having to do any planing or chiseling, without trying to make a paper shim stay in there when you put the hinge back against the mortise. So you can shim your hinges further from the pin or closer to the pin to make them shift the door either left or right. However tricky single leaf doors are to hang, French doors, that is 2 leaves, doors in 1 jamb, are trickier because you have all of the same considerations on a single door plus mating and matching what's going on the other side of the jamb. In this particular unit, I feel like they didn't leave quite enough space to get, adequate reveal over here between the door and the jamb, the right reveal between the doors, and adequate reveal between the door and the jamb over here. It's a little snug. So now, months after I put it in, and since we're getting ready to use this building, I need to adjust these and tinker with them to close this, lower that, close that, raise this, and I'm going to do all that with wire, I hope. Number 12 wire, little hook bent on the top, same length as the hinge. We want it out by the front of the door. Drill a little hole in the top, tap that little hook into the hole. Should have drilled the hole a little deeper, but that'll work. Holds it in place. Close the hinge. So it's held out noticeably right there. Let's see if it helped. Brought it down some. Needs to either come down some more or bring this leaf up. We've closed that reveal a little bit. Better. We need to close it down here when we lift the other corner. And let's see what we have over here against the jamb. Better. Got our dimes width. Little much there. You can actually see the wire in there. I may have to push that back a little bit. We're going to do the same thing now down on the lower right hand corner of the door. See how it goes. Same thing, opposite corner. It's laying in there pretty nice. Well, this was a long fight, and it was so frustrating I just couldn't film it all. But I've managed to raise this up. This one came up, this one came down. I had to file these strike plate back on this aluminum astragal. Real pain, because there's just not much slack in this thing. But I shimmed this hinge out at the front of the jamb. The rest remain flush. I shimmed this bottom hinge out at the front on the door side. And I shimmed this top hinge back on the inside. Brought it back right here, which pushed the barrel of the hinge out. And between a little of this and a little of that, we tweaked this door up to where it goes. Didn't take over 3 hours. When you walk up to an opening and hang a door, you're hostage to two realities. And one is whether the opening is what it ought to be, and the second is whether the door is what it ought to be. So you got to spend a little time before you ever get into the bathroom ready to start wrestling the door around to make sure that the opening is wide enough, that it is reasonably plumb, and if it's not, you know which direction it's out of plumb. And that one of the really critical deals is it's high enough so you don't have to cut off the jamb legs, and the two rough sides of the jamb are in a plane. That is, if they're out of plumb, they're both out of plumb in the same direction, because if they're crossed up, you've got to really pay attention in order to have any chance at all of getting the trim to look good when you get around to putting that on. So this rough jamb is fairly plumb. It's probably 1/4 of an inch out and 6 foot 8 inches. Who framed that? And this side is about the same distance out in the other direction, which means the bottom is a little narrow, the top's a little wide. So probably, given the fact that I've got 3.5 inch trim to put in, and that's a little bit short, I'm going to crowd everything towards the hinge side just as tight as I can. The opening's plenty high, and the floor is nice and level, so I'm going to let both jamb legs sit down on the floor. But if you've got any doubt about that, shim up your hinge side, because that's the one you fasten first, and you don't want to get stuck having to cut that jamb leg off and shim the whole thing down, kind of slipping those nails, or cutting them loose and raising it up, because this side is too short. Do yourself a favor and knock back any sheetrock bumps. Drive the nail back if the framer didn't get them back. And now with the hollow core door, I like to just set the whole menagerie right in place. If it's a solid core door, if it's a heavy door, you don't do that. At least I usually hang the jamb in place just using a level and get it nice and close so it'll hold the door up once I actually feel like I'm strong enough to set it into the hinges. And like I just mentioned, I know that this top is a little far back, so I'm going to swing this door open. It'll stand there just fine, and I'm going to nail just below the bottom hinge, right up tight against the jamb. Now you can either pry the door up with a bar, or just put it up on a little stack of shims until it's pretty much plumb with the opening. And then I hold about, maybe an inch below the bottom of the hinge, and I put one on each side at about the same height. I do the same thing at the top hinge. I come just below the hinge, slide in a couple of shims. Now I haven't got a level out yet, because I know that this needs to be over a little, and I know that I've got a mile to adjust. So I've got two shims in here. I put nails below them, just so the pressure holds them in, and then I step into the room and see how we're doing. First problem to avoid is to make sure that your jamb lengths are not wrong off the floor. We're too wide right here. We're factory set distance right there. So I need to bring the bottom over or bring the top back to close this distance. Let's see what the level tells us. If you've got a 6-foot level like this, you can put it right against the jamb and check it. Problem is, this is a Stabila level, and by the end of the second year after I bought it, the fluid had leaked out and this thing just doesn't even work. So I just use this for a straight edge or for, to hold the rod eye on my blazer. But when you're using the door, it's a straight edge. So a 4-foot level will tell you just what you need, and yes, the top needs to go back just a little. Good, that's going to close the gap at the top. See how that looks? That's real good here. Getting pretty good there. But it swings open. That's not so good. But it's nice and plumb. I need to bring it out a little bit. We're back from the drywall. But I can do that just by pulling it. There's a little hinge bind on this. Hinge bind means the door is being pushed back open, and I think I just need to knock the very bottom of the jamb back a little bit with a couple more nails. Well, I'm not the best at this, as you guys who are the best at this have already picked up on, but the idea is that everything you do to a door affects every other thing you're trying to do to a door. You have to even up how the jambs flush with the sheetrock on both sides. You have to keep the reveal approximately the width of a dime over here, approximately the width of a nickel over here. All that's saying is more on the strike side than on the hinge side. And then once it's kind of in there where it goes, you just go around with shims and concentrate where the latch is going to happen and where the hinges happen and make it look sweet. I can't explain it, but there is a considerable difference between the projection of the jamb here at the bottom in order to be in a plane with the projection of the jamb on the other side. Darn framers. But at this point you can notch it or mortise it back into the drywall. Just like mortising out for a hinge on a door. Score the paper. Take a chisel you don't care anything about.
If you've just discovered our little shop building series here on our channel, I'll let you know that there are almost 30 videos that we've made as I've been building this office shop combination for my daughter and her husband. And if you have been watching that series, well, congratulations, because it's taken quite a while. An old man's schedule, an old man's level of productivity, all the demands of life, and the latitude that comes from working for your loved ones means that it's taken me a while to get to this point. But regardless of all that, and hoping that you'll be interested in checking out some of those other videos, I'll just say that hanging the doors at the end of a project is satisfying and challenging, and it gives you a chance to solve a lot of problems all at the same time, and then when you get them right, look over your shoulder as you walk off to the next project and say, that was fun. Let's see if I can do it a little quicker this time. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.